Most shonen main characters are ridiculously overpowered, and often end up surpassing their allies by massive margins. Tanjiro from Kimetsu no Yaiba is not quite like that. Even though he has sun breathing, a hard head, and an indomitable will, he's closely matched by his peers such as Zenitsu, Inosuke, Kanao, and Genya. But what if Tanjiro was a prodigy from the moment he was born? In today's video, we'll explore what would happen to the Demon Slayer story if Tanjiro was born with Yoriichi's powers. Now first up, let's establish what exactly Yoriichi's powers are. Being born with the Demon Slayer mark, Yoriichi had incredible physical prowess, with his speed and power even surpassing adults when he was just a child. On top of that, Yoriichi was a sword-fighting prodigy, and could beat the masters of his time when he was just 7 years old. Together with his strength, Yoriichi's combat skills allowed him to fight multiple demons at the same time with little difficulty. But on top of that, Yoriichi was also naturally capable of maintaining the selfless state, which made it impossible for demons like Muzan to sense any kind of killer intent from him. While the selfless state threw off the demon's attacking intuition, Yoriichi could also access the transparent world, allowing him to see his enemies' vital points. This gave Yoriichi the ability to predict attacks before they were even made and deal critical strikes to demons, while they struggled to keep up with him. And that brings us to the Taisho era, where Tanjiro is born with all of Yoriichi's powers. The characteristic forehead scar we see in the anime is replaced by a proper Demon Slayer mark, which his parents misinterpret as just an unusual birthmark. While Tanjiro's freakish abilities do catch his father's attention, they don't get noticed beyond that, as the Kamado family spends a pretty sheltered life. However, seeing Tanjiro's potential inspires his father, Kamado Tanjiro, to teach his son the Hinokami Kagura dance at a very young age, as his body appears to be tough enough to handle sun breathing. So when his father passes away, Tanjiro continues the tradition of the Hinokami Kagura, right up until his family is attacked by demons. Now this is where things change radically, because when Tanjiro returns home after the attack, he's actually able to restrain Nezuko and defend himself, despite her newfound strength. When Gyomei turns up and sees that Nezuko is a demon, he's actually more amazed by how well Tanjiro is handling the situation. He steps up and tries to break up the fight and slay Nezuko, but that's when Gyomei notices something strange. The boy is ridiculously strong enough to even resist a Hashira. Gyomei realizes that this is no normal child and directs Tanjiro and Nezuko toward the former water Hashira, Urokudaki Sakonji, who will properly restrain Nezuko and train Tanjiro to become a swordsman. Once again, even Urokudaki is surprised by Tanjiro's prowess, as he masters all the forms of water breathing in just a couple of months, instead of 2 years like in the original timeline. Because of this, Urokudaki actually alerts the upper ranks of the Demon Slayers, and he himself tells Ubuyashiki Kagaya about Tanjiro and Nezuko. As a result, the Kamado siblings are summoned to meet the Hashira right after the final selection, and before Tanjiro even receives his Nichiren blade. Now this goes just as you would expect, with Sanemi deciding to test Nezuko just like he does in the original timeline. He stabs the young demon and then slices his arm, taunting her with the scent of his blood. Tanjiro rushes forward to save Nezuko, but is pinned down by Obanai. But while he was struggling to break free the last time, this time he throws the Serpent Hashira with ease, and runs towards Sanemi and Nezuko. Everyone watches on in shock. How could a young boy that just passed the final selection overpower a Hashira? Gyomei alone keeps his cool and uses his chains to bind and restrain Tanjiro. Unable to escape, he screams out at Nezuko, telling her to stay strong and remember her humanity. Now, Nezuko cannot possibly remember her past, but Tanjiro's voice triggers an instinct within her and brings up Urokudaki's hypnosis that ordered her to protect all humans. Thus, Nezuko is able to turn away, and the Kamado siblings successfully pass the test. Kagaya announces that not only will Nezuko be allowed to live, but she will also be granted the freedom to hunt other demons alongside Tanjiro. So how did the main arcs of the Demon Slayer story change? Well, for starters, the entire Asakusa arc doesn't even take place, and instead, Tanjiro goes directly to meet Tamayo under Kagaya's orders. This means that he doesn't catch Muzan's attention in Asakusa as well, avoiding the confrontation with Susumaru and Yaiba. Tanjiro's first major achievement is within the Tsuzumi Mansion, where he encounters and kills the Drum Demon. Now, this battle isn't even close, because Tanjiro's skills far exceed the powers of a lower moon. The only reason this arc is important for our story is because Tanjiro runs into Zenitsu and Inosuke, and the three form their partnership just like in the original story. The next key event is during the Mount Natagumo arc, where Tanjiro faces his first real challenge in the form of the Lower Moon 5 Rui. Unlike the other demons he's met so far, Tanjiro had to be super careful with Rui, as his web-based blood demon art would have killed Tanjiro instantly if he landed a hit. But once again, the power of the Demon Slayer mark is just too much of a gap for Rui to bridge, and he gets taken out by the water-breathing third form, Flowing Dance. Now, this arc is pretty special because Tanjiro isn't forced to realize that the Hinokami Kagura is a total concentration breathing technique. Furthermore, Nezuko doesn't awaken her blood demon art either, because she never had to jump out to save her brother. The reason this completely changes our story is because Tanjiro has performed a Hashira level feat by killing Rui. This means he's not taken with Zenitsu and Inosuke to the Butterfly Mansion to recover and train under Shinobu. Instead, Kaguya decides to send Tanjiro to train under the one demon slayer that is undeniably stronger than him, the stone Hashira Gyomei. Being separated from Zenitsu and Inosuke means that Tanjiro would not be on the Mugen train or fight against Enmu. However, it's unlikely that Tanjiro's absence changes the events of the Mugen train arc that much, because even Rengoku alone could have taken out Enmu without too much trouble. During this period, Gyomei would help Tanjiro become conscious of his various powers, and properly study and analyze the selfless state and transparent world. Chances are that Gyomei himself also learns these abilities after hearing about them, since we know that he possesses immense natural talent. But so far, we've been forgetting an important student of Gyomei, Shinazugawa Genya. Having Tanjiro as a sparring partner would help Genya improve by leaps and bounds, and he would also learn certain aspects of maintaining the selfless state. Those of you who have been attentive to the story so far might be coming to an uncomfortable realization right about now. If Tanjiro is off training with Genya and Gyomei, does that mean he doesn't join the Entertainment District arc? Seeing how it's not an official mission, and Tengen just turns up at the Butterfly Mansion searching for 3 girls, it's pretty clear that Tanjiro and Nezuko won't be joining the fight. But that's a disaster scenario for the Demon Slayers, because Tanjiro's sun breathing won't save the day, and Nezuko wouldn't be able to beat up Daki and reverse Gyutaro's poison with her blood demon art. This means that not only Tengen, but Zenitsu and Inosuke are also killed in the Entertainment District arc. Tanjiro is devastated when he hears the news, and doubles down on his training. Fearing that his obsessiveness was getting out of hand, Gyomei sends Tanjiro to accompany Genya as he travels to the Swordsmith village. Now, this is where we converge back with the main timeline, as Tanjiro and Genya participate in the Swordsmith village arc just like they did earlier. Even though both Tanjiro and Genya are much stronger than they originally were in the Swordsmith village arc, Han Tengu's forms are still strong enough to give them plenty of trouble. You also have to remember that Nezuko is much weaker in this timeline, and trying to protect her is the trigger for Tanjiro to switch from water breathing to the Hinokami Kagura. Even with Nezuko as a liability, Yoriichi's skill set is just too powerful, and Tanjiro manages to execute Han Tengu's main body before daybreak. And this is where Muzan comes into the story. Earlier, the Swordsmith village arc ended with him witnessing Nezuko's immunity to the sun, but this time, he sees the sun-breathing demon slayer with the Hanafuda earrings through Han Tengu's eyes, and is struck by a feeling of absolute terror. There's barely any time for the Hashira training arc to take place in this timeline, because Muzan's response to witnessing Tanjiro in action is both swift and deadly. Just when the demon slayers recover, Muzan strikes at the Ubuyashiki mansion. But just like in the original timeline, Kaguya and Tamayo launch their contingency plan to poison and damage Muzan. But our timeline changes considerably when the demon slayers are dropped into the Infinity Castle. You see, even Muzan himself was no match for Yoriichi in his prime. Now, with a few years of training behind him, Tanjiro isn't quite at the same level of prime Yoriichi, but he's certainly strong enough to take on any of the upper moons on his own. But you also have to remember that Gyomei is stronger as well, meaning that this dynamic duo becomes even more ridiculously overpowered than in the original. What this means for the Infinity Castle storyline is that Kokushibo and Akaza get taken out with very little damage done to the Hashira and 0 casualties. Now, Shinobu will still die during her battle with Doma, and Mitsuri and Obanai will take some damage against Nakime, but the final forces that fight against Muzan in the Sunrise Countdown arc will be considerably stronger. Now things are looking good for the Demon Slayers, but you also have to factor in Muzan's trauma. Imagine seeing the image of Yoriichi in Tanjiro's face, but this time he's accompanied by a bunch of Demon Slayers that are incredibly powerful in their own right. In this timeline, Muzan probably decides to escape after realizing that Tamayo's poison has severely nerfed his healing factor. However, unlike with Yoriichi, the Demon Slayers are right there to take out any part of Muzan that Tanjiro misses. With their combined efforts, the Demon Slayers brutally hack at Muzan as the sun comes up, resulting in a victory that almost makes you feel sorry for the Demon King. So what do you think of this timeline? Is Tanjiro too overpowered to have a compelling narrative? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comments down below and check out the other awesome Demon Slayer videos on our channel.